Those who are familiar with the politics of the region, they know that the Americans' involvement in this matter will 100% be at their loss. The loss they receive will probably be much more than the damage Iran will bear. If America have a military presence on the ground, without a doubt it will be an irreparable loss. They are threatening us, and they are also clearly asking us to surrender. With an unacceptable language, they ask the nation to surrender, and they ask us to come and surrender, which surprises us. First of all, they should threaten someone who is scared of their threat. The nation of Iran has shown that it does not feel intimidated by the threat of those doing the threatening.
Moments ago, Iran's supreme leader addressed his nation, saying Iran will not surrender. He also directly responded to President Trump. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei made this threat: let the Americans know that the Iranian nation is not one to surrender, and any military intervention on their part will undoubtedly result in irreparable damage. His remarks coming just a day after President Trump called on Tehran to surrender unconditionally. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh is in London. What more can you tell us about what the Iranian supreme leader is saying this morning to his nation, but clearly sending a message to the world and specifically the United States?
Yeah, his second public comment since this conflict, this phase of the conflict began on Friday. And I should say, yes, while the rhetoric is fiery, it's not the most combustible language we've heard coming out of Tehran. And indeed, the irreparable damage, he says, that will be done. He doesn't necessarily say it will be done to the United States bases, for example, in the region. He doesn't, as far as we know at this point, appear to even mention President Trump by name. And also, too, the version we're seeing is a statement that's been read by a female anchor on state news broadcasting. So an interesting set of nuances here, but the words themselves are: let the Americans know that the Iranian nation is not one to surrender, and any military intervention on their part will undoubtedly result in irreparable damage. Those who are wise and familiar with Iran, its people and its history will never speak to this nation in the language of threats. And that, of course, comes after Trump himself suggested that Khamenei was an easy target and suggested they would hold off killing him for now, and demanded unconditional surrender. Now, I think many long-term observers of Iran would say to you, it's highly unlikely at any stage you would hear the Ayatollah or anyone in his security circle accept the notion of unconditional surrender, and how, of course, would that even practically occur with Israeli jets in the sky. But this statement, I think, it's clearly putting Iran in a position where it's not about to suddenly kowtow to any specific American demand. It is clearly not looking publicly here or beseeching America for some kind of diplomatic off-ramp. But you've got to bear in mind too, Sarah, the position and condition Iran is currently in. A significant part of its military and indeed nuclear scientists having been killed, that hierarchy gone, disrupted, even the replacement chief of staff of the military killed in just the last 48 hours. Khamenei himself clearly dealing with the most existential crisis indeed of his career, with the Natanz enrichment plant heavily damaged, according to UN inspectors speaking in the last 48 hours, by these Israeli strikes. And so they're now looking, I think, at their military arsenal. What indeed do they have left? Some experts we've been speaking to have suggested they have between 1,000 to 2,000 missiles that could hit Israel. They've possibly burned through 500, maybe 700 of those so far. So really doubts as to how much they have left that could be used as a deterrent against Israel, period. And I think that will be dictating a lot of their choices going forwards. They can't publicly give in, but there's not an awful lot potentially, as far as we know, they can do to deter the US and Israel in the days and weeks ahead.
Iran's supreme leader ratcheting up its war of words with the US this morning. The US military now surging its troops in the region. And two sources, CNN says President Trump is increasingly warming to the idea of the US using its military to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran ramping up tough talk, as we mentioned just a short time ago. Iran's supreme leader warned that if the US gets involved in the conflict, it will cause irreparable damage. That comes after President Trump said the Ayatollah would be an easy target and demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. Already, the U.S. is mobilizing forces, sending another aircraft carrier to the Middle East, and sources telling CNN the U.S. is deploying more than 30 aerial refueling tankers to the region as well. Overnight, Israel says it launched a new wave of strikes involving more than 50 jets on Iranian centrifuges and missile production sites. And new before and after satellite images obtained by CNN show the damage that the airstrikes have caused to Iran's military facilities. CNN chief international anchor Christian Amanpour joining me now. Christian, you look at this situation and what we're facing. What do you see as you see all of these things moving into place, the military moving things into place, Donald Trump warming to the idea of strikes? Do you see this going forward, that the U.S. is indeed going to take part in this war?
Look, it's hard to tell. Donald Trump says certain things and is, he's making decisions with his closest advisors, and we don't know, sometimes from one day to the next what it will be. But you're absolutely correct that all the signals point to Donald Trump deciding to take part. And apparently, according to what you've just reported, the actual physical preps for such a deployment, contingency plans, so to speak, pre-positioning aircraft and other such equipment that might be necessary, appears to be going on from what you've just said. The question, of course, is, following reporting from our colleagues at the New York Times, Ronan Bergman, Maggie Haberman, and the others, it is very clear that, according to their reporting and according to all that we see and hear, Donald Trump is significantly influenced by Benjamin Netanyahu, who has wanted to do this for many, many decades, as we have been reporting. Donald Trump, we hear and we know because he said it, is seeing the successful military operation by Israel and thinking that maybe this is something to also take part in. The question, though, of course, is what is the end strategy and what is the wide goal, and does the United States and Israel share the same goal? Is Donald Trump also in the regime change, or more precisely the regime destruction business, as Israel is and as it keeps telegraphing? For instance, when Donald Trump posted that Khamenei, the so-called supreme leader, would be an easy target if they decided to go ahead, that is telegraphing the desire for that political assassination, should they desire to do that. Now, you've seen that Khamenei has responded and done the usual. Iran always says we will not surrender and we will, maintain our dignity, our sovereignty. The issue is with the Iranian people right now. There is a good deal of fear and panic. I have my own friends and family, not to mention others who I'm in touch with there, who are trying to follow instructions. It is impossible to evacuate a city of 10 million people. Just impossible. It's a completely irrational thing to say. So analysts are saying this is a sort of a psyops, if you like, to cause as much panic and chaos and damage to the regime's control right now by threatening, that many people, or subliminally threatening that many people, by bombing in various areas that may or may not have military targets, but also have quite a lot of civilian targets, many, many residential neighborhoods, and also by cutting and disrupting and hacking a current the financial system, where it's getting more and more difficult for Iranians to be able to get money out. They also don't have enough gasoline, even if they wanted to get into their cars, to actually escape en masse as they are being told to do. So this is the situation on the ground, and the real question is, what is the strategy? What is America's end goal, and what is Israel's end goal, and do they align?
Yeah, those are really good questions that need to be answered. There's also this question that I wanted to talk to you about, because you are in touch with people in Iran, and you've been covering this region for such a very long time, many, many decades. One of the stated goals we are now hearing from Netanyahu is that not only does he want to get rid of the nuclear facilities that Iran has and its nuclear capabilities, but he is calling for regime change. What are you hearing from within Iran as Israel is also striking Iran and sending people into a panic?
Well, indeed, to follow up from what I was just saying, there is quite a lot of panic. Look, we've said it over and again, the majority of the Iranian people are fed up with this government, with this regime. I have personally covered the Green Revolution, the so-called Green Revolution, back in 2009, when people actually came up to me as I was following them with cameras, running through the streets with these protesters in 2009, and they said, Madam, this time it's going to happen. But no, it didn't, because the regime used its police, military, and paramilitaries to crush that protest. I've been banned ever since for doing those reports on people's desires in Iran. So the question is, will they be able to come out now under a hail of bombardment and under the panic that I've just described, because people don't know where the hits are going going to happen, even if Israel says they're telegraphing. Remember, Gaza the same. They said they were telegraphing, but many people just found themselves going in circles and not knowing exactly where to go, over and over again, being told to evacuate under a hail of bombs and strikes. The second issue is, even though many people would like to see an end to this, do they want to see it? And you're seeing it on their internal discussions and Telegram, although even that is difficult to monitor right now because of the disruption of a lot of internet ability there, that they're very concerned and not thrilled that this might come, you know, at the end of an Israeli F-15 jet. It is very, very sensitive in that part of the world, especially given what that part of the world and many parts of the world view as, you know, the decimation of the Palestinian people by Israel right now in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. So there are all those complicated things. Then the last most important thing is, who comes next? If regime destruction is the aim, who and what comes next?